I may have a smile on my face, but it's serious.
It is.
Now, to have someone of his age, he started work when you were not born. When you were not born, you know, I may have been a fetus. Now, can you help them in any way in their mobilization? You started within 1 week and you were hitting, you know, how much in the numbers? They are over 227,000 or so on the road by the figures, I think 2021. So 400, they could get more people within the fold.
Well, I don't think my uncle, Dr. Ananeji, really needs to mobilize any more people in his particular group. He represents a constituency, and that's the constituency you should look at. I don't think it's fair to want to just look at his numbers today. It's difficult. A lot of these pensioners are not necessarily tech savvy.
Yeah. What has worked for you guys has been the social media.
It's been technology, and our website keeps crashing. It's crashed again. I think we hit over 300,000. It crashed, so we have to come back to rebuild it again because we didn't expect this amount of mobilization. But it's been very, very helpful. But the only thing I encourage him, we are a collective. While I agree that the pensioners have a special place, and they have actually served. Equally, is it the case that can be made that if they had served effectively, we shouldn't also be here because they are the ones who have carried us this way. And if you go to a typical place, the rich people are the oldest people. So you see the younger ones don't really have these problems. I don't think there's any special difference between everybody. Everybody has very unique social challenges. So we must fight together and win for everybody together. So at the IBF, we do not just represent young people. We represent both pensioners and non-pensioners, self-employed, unemployed, formal, informal. Everybody is a part of the IBF. As part of our conveners, you also have a pensioner, who is also one of our conveners. If you look at on the scale
that
of
may be a pensioner who has put his pension money in some security.
But that's exactly what Edu Anani's group is representing. They're not representing the pension funds.
That's right.
So the pension funds he's not talking about the pension money they get.
That's correct. That's correct.
As a pensioner, I also am an individual, and I also made my own personal investment.
That's right.
Don't interfere with it. I agree with him. I don't disagree with him. So I think we are fully aligned, and that's also what we also stand for. So any support we can give them, we will give them. But I think we should look at it more as a collective going forward. The problem that we sometimes miss in this entire thing, Bright was really right when he said that we currently maybe have a fiscal crisis, but not yet, but we are going to get there. And this decision to actually try and involve individuals is what may facilitate or fast track it. So I think that there's been some little gap in the policy evaluation. Maybe it was just, that's why I keep saying that, look, it's easy to sit behind a PC as a modeler, put in numbers and then shift it here and there. But these are not just numbers. They are lives, and you must, at every point in time, look at the social reaction, the behavioral reaction to everything you do. So I'll walk you through the economics part of it. In every given economy, the providers of loanable funds are households. The funding, domestic funding that drives the whole economy is mainly savings from households. So when you see a bank take your money and go and put it in government security, it's because households put there. Firms are actually takers because they now take credit. So the last place you touch, when you disrupt that particular base and their confidence in the financial sector, you disrupt the economy's access to loanable funds. Then you also disrupt the economy's access to capital. You are destroying the economy. You will have an economic crisis. If today everybody gets scared of putting his money in the bank and we are going to have a run on the banks will crash. If we all now say we are going to keep our money in our homes, keep it in dollars, keep it in safes, the financial system will crash. The government will crash. So the last place you want to deal with is a place like that. And even if you have to deal with it, your communication must be well coordinated. must be engaging over time. Now you're looking at people losing up to about 88%. In some cases, 77% as Ellie indicated. He's also chairman of the Tesla Capital Research team, which I'm a part of. It's so true. Who is going to give up that? Look at Jamaica. It was what, 10 and 15%, right? Look how long it took them for them to even come to a consensus. How do you expect people to just jump at an 88% head cut or body cut? I don't know what kind of cut that you are looking at. There's a lot of engagement required. But the most sensitive part is this particular part. Because the individuals don't have any backup. They don't have any support system. They have no incentives. The other thing you should also look at is that this is actually property, it's assets. People have homes. When the money was collected, the loans were taken. We may have challenges with how government used it. I think I walked through that with Evans Mensah. The government was not optimal in the utilization of the debt, or the net borrowings accrued. But whatever it is, it was used within the entire economic space for everybody. You can say there was corruption, that's fine. You said that, hey, the part that we are all responsible for came to everybody. Samson, you may have kept your money rather in the bank and invested in government bonds. He may have just decided that he would rather keep his money and go and invest in property. But at the end of the day, we have a problem to solve together. Why should it be you who went to put your money in the bonds be the one to suffer and not the one who put his money in the property? There's an equity problem there. Another thing we also sometimes miss, you take a balance sheet and you go and maybe look at Uncle Nani's thing. Uncle Nani, okay, maybe has 2 million, 3 million. Oh, he's really fine. I don't think that this should be a problem. After all, I'm sending him his monthly pensions. On that money that he's taking, he has a lot of family members that are depending on it. He has nephews he has to take care of. His people are graduating without jobs. You have to sustain them. And that's why I say the human being going called a Ghanaian is an overcutted human being. Your taxes have gone up, they are cutting you. Inflation has reduced the value of money, it has cut you. Your social interdependence is cutting you. So the human being left, what is left as an individual? And on top of this human being you are dealing with, you say that the little he has saved over the years and try to set it aside to really make meaning for his life, that one too, you want to come and chop 88% of its value overnight. It's not a sustainable proposal. But I think that the Ministry of Finance has opened up engagement. And we must commend the minister for it.
How do you explain before you get to that, how do you explain the 88% value of your money or investment that is lost? The finance minister at the very start said, nothing is lost, nothing will be lost, quoting the scriptures. That is what we should be working with.
No, it can't be what he's working with, because the finance minister is not the one who defined science. He didn't define finance, he didn't define maths, he didn't define truth. So what is real is real. It's not. I don't need to make it up. You heard the numbers from Ellie, because there's a model you use. You look at the present value of your money. So the last time I was here, I really showed you. Now, if people over this same period were even going to expect the same coupons or the interest rate that we're expecting, that was 50% of the value gone. If we are going to now look at the next option, which will actually be what we call opportunity cost in economics, if I wasn't investing in bonds at this time, what similar thing could I have invested in? That would have been treasury bills. Treasury bills at those rates, it means that you're going to lose about 72% of the value. Now, if you look at inflation, which should be actually the minimum that should really give you a neutral return, meaning you don't make any real return on your money, then that's where you get to the 88%. So it's not the case that nothing will be missing. My brother, let's make life very simple. What's the price of cement last year or 10 years ago? Just think about it. I built a house. I was building maybe then. I guess cement must have been 20 cedis or less. Maybe 60, I've forgotten. Anybody who can find it, please tell us. 10 years in 2012, how much was a bag of cement? All right. So if a bag of cement was, say, 12 cedis, then, or let's say 20 Ghana cedis, that 20 Ghana cedis, if I decide to pay it to you in 2023, tell me whether you'll be able to get a bag of cement. You even get half a bag. You even get a quarter of a bag. So it means that you are holding 20, but the value of the 20 is not the value that it was before. So you are losing money. So it is not the case that nothing will be lost. And that's why in our petition, we were quite clear that We tried to recouch what the finance minister said, that we don't think he believed, he wanted to see that so much will be missing, so much will be lost and all that. It is not the case that you are not losing, you are going to lose money. The question is the extent of loss. Can we accommodate it? Should it be a burden share thing at a certain level? The banks and the insurance companies, I heard them, and there has to be clarity on the structures to support them. Government has the ability to provide them certain perks, forbearances. It helps them recover. Because when the economy is down, they will also not be up there. They won't have any sustainable business. In any case, we are all here anyway. So let's find a way to move out of here. I've not heard the bank say they are unwilling to cooperate. They are expecting that the burden should be properly shared, both from government and the structure that makes them also sustainable. So there's a win, there's a way to win. The insurance also have this, insurance bodies also have the same thing. They need to be able to pay their claims when they are due.
That's right.
Because if you are, I'm expecting to collect maybe 100 million CDs. He gave us a number that they're spending about 2 billion or something like that, 5 million a day, multiply it by 365 or whichever. Then that's the money supposed to come. They are supposed to have some bonds retire or mature this year, and that's what we use to pay it. Then suddenly, you are saying that this money, you can't get it. The best chance for you to get a piece of it is even 14% of it or 15% of it in 2027. So if the claim is made today, how are they going to pay the claim? Government may be able to come and say, okay, let's set up this stability fund or this liquidity fund or financial stability fund. Anytime you have these major claims, this is the structure we'll put in place for you to be able to make a claim on it. Right. And we'll cushion you at a very minimal interest rate or close to zero interest rate so that the system doesn't collapse. For them, there's a mechanism. But for an individual, when myself or any pensioner or you have programs, your children have to go to school, you've been saving all this while so that at least you can afford your child an Ashanti University, a Legon University, a University of Ghana education. And it gets to this time, they are telling you that you are spreading over 10 years. What happens? What if you just quit your job because you're expecting that you build this capital to start a business for you to survive? So you also now become effectively a pensioner.
There's this man who spoke
without pension.
Who spoke to Top Story yesterday, and I've seen some of the bank statements that he had to show as proof. And he had put his money in the cocoa bill.
Yeah.
And the expectation was that he'll pick it at this particular time.
Yeah.
To pay his wife's school fees.
Yeah.
And the money drops in and he's been taken without his consent. So now he's stranded. He's just confused. He doesn't know what to do. That means potentially that education is going to be put on hold.
That's what it means. All right, that education is put on hold and may also have economic implications for their survival actually today.
That's right.
All right, there's one thing that you said, and I just want to make the public understand. Cocoa bills are not amongst the safest papers you have in the country. Anybody who tells you that has misinformed you.
Oh, really?
It is not. It's not a paper issued by the government of Ghana. It's a corporate bond or corporate bill. It is issued by a corporate. So you have to look at the financial health of that corporate. This is a company that has been consistently making operational losses over the past few years. Consistently. If you follow and you're watching their books, it's one of the places you even want to put your money. All right, but the problem is that the education and visibility is not there. When you go to the Cocoa Board website today, I think the latest financial statement you find is 2019. That tells you the level of transparency of this organization you are trying to trust. Even the government of Ghana, at the end of every year, by the budget time, gives us an indication of how it is ending this year. This is a corporate. As we speak, we are in 2022. We don't know what has happened in 2020, what has happened in 2021, what has happened in 2022, and then now we are going to start. We have started.
So hold on for me. I'll return on the big issue of the burden sharing, and where you people say that you don't actually need the individual bondholders' funds for what you need in the circumstances. So return for you to explain that to us, and where you continue to ask that there's a lot that government can cut. It can look at various other places to cut on, which it is not doing. The finance minister gives us an indication that there has been some 2 to 3 GDP reduction in expenditure and they are only paying on commitment basis, and the government, the fuel issues that they are seeking to take care of, using your small vehicles rather than your V8s that consume so much. They are going to they are also doing that, so that is also some part of thing that they are doing to help. But let me get to Professor Eliklim again, and I wanted you to share with us from where you left off on the question I asked you. I'm sure you know David Ofosu-Dote. He has been speaking at the Constitution Day lectures and at other places now, and he is scared, and I believe like many others, that the economy definitely will not be the same. He refers us to many situations where people are now losing faith and trust in the financial systems. Like Senyo, suggested earlier. We heard of the DKMs, we heard of the men's gold issues, then the bank collapse matter came up. Well, we spent 25 billion to clean up the banks. Now we are looking for 3 billion from the IMF. We can't get, I don't know how that works though. These have affected, the culture of savings and investment generally. And now, where people felt it was safest to put your money, of course, we understand that treasury bills would not be affected. Can you imagine the economy after, in the process to recovery and after recovery?
Okay,
that people have lost trust in the financial systems, even including the safest place to put your money?
Yes, thank you very much. So it's a bit unfortunate that this is happening at this time because, as you rightly mentioned, people lost money during the banking crisis. People lost money when they invested in men's gold, which was a scam or a Ponzi scheme, if you ask me. Okay, when I teach investments, I always tell my students that government instruments are more or less risk-free. And I used to mention examples of countries like Argentina defaulting, Russia defaulting. I didn't know it would be coming close to home very soon. Okay, so it's an unfortunate situation. A lot of institutions who had, and I know a number of institutions who had invested money in some of the banks and savings and loans who lost their money. They learned their lessons and decided to invest their money in government instruments with the knowledge that these instruments were more or less risk-free. Okay, so it's unfortunate. I think that, like Senyo has said, individual investors should be exempted. They are very vulnerable. Okay, they don't have a lot of safety nets. So if you're able to exempt individuals, that creates room for them to keep supplying funds to the financial sector so that banks can continue to lend, government can obtain funds to carry out its activities, etc. So it's unfortunate, but we can mitigate the consequences by, for example, one, excluding individual investors. Two, if the situation with the banks are well dealt with, such that they don't make too much losses. So from a Bloomberg report that I saw, banks this year are not going to make any profits if they accept the domestic debt exchange program. So that is serious. Again, in its current form, their capital is likely to be impaired. And that means that the ability to lend will reduce. That will compromise future economic growth. They may have liquidity challenges, etc. Okay, so if we're able to design a better package for the banks such that the financial system can keep running, okay, then in that case, we can come out from this crisis and recover. Financial crises are not unusual, okay? Or economic
there will be job losses. How bad will it be?
That will be difficult to tell. If the banks take the deal in its current form, for example, it means that they may have to lay off their staff. So that's direct job losses from the financial sector.
The banks are looking at 65 billion impact on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were saying 50% of what?
50% of the workforce, because look, your top line, about 50% is gone.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. It's just as simple as that. Zero, what do you call it, income from government securities. You're out. You know.
Yeah. So Doctor, continue, because I was exploring further with you. You know, bringing people to think about the reality now, so that people don't live in an illusion that, you know, this is, you know, some painkiller, like we say, you take it now and then the next day you are healed.
Right. Yeah. So yes, the direct losses for the banks is there, but there will also be direct losses for businesses that banks, for example, lend to. And remember that banks in Ghana, a large proportion of their portfolio is invested in government instruments. So if they can't generate income from these instruments, they can't pay their employees, they will have to do massive layoffs. The businesses that they are not able to lend to, these businesses may also have to lay off their employees. So the impact can be there, but if we manage it well by ensuring that the banks have sufficient liquidity to continue to operate, that the banks are not eroded in terms of their capital, so that they can keep lending to the economy, and also by communicating and engaging investors. I think the process has started. Like Senyo mentioned, the Ministry of Finance is now meeting the individual bondholders forum. So if we are able to engage, then we can find solutions together. Indeed, I don't think that the financial institutions want to outrightly reject the proposal, but if they are engaged and their balance sheet needs are taken into consideration, such that like the insurance companies can keep paying their claims, the banks can also keep paying their obligations and liabilities, then we can reduce or mitigate the impact. But if we are not able to manage the process very well, that could compromise the financial sector, compromise economic growth, lead to mass unemployment, that can lead to political upheavals like we saw in Sri Lanka. So those are some of the consequences that can occur if we don't manage it well.
Okay, when we return, like I mentioned to Senyo, we would look at the other issues. And the minister repeats that nobody's principal is at risk. Those are his words. Nobody's principal is at risk. What does that mean? And do you trust that? When it comes to austerity and people say government is not doing much, they want to see government also burden share. The minister says that expenditure is being cut to the bone. Do you appreciate what he's talking about? That expenditure has been cut to the bone. These are his own words. He says expenditures are being cut to the bone, at least in the ministries. Okay, so we'll be right back.
And how we then manage our ministries to make sure that there's no excessive expenditure.
But again, it comes back to some people trying to quantify these measures that you're already taking in the budget. And they see that it is still not enough, and maybe looking at the challenge that we are in, a lot can be done. The issues about ministers being moved around is the prerogative of the president, but when it comes to the expenditure of the ministries, agencies, so I would say the ball is in your courts. There can be further squeeze as well to demonstrate our commitment and to share the burden, because then some are saying that the alternative to this debt exchange program, a partial one, is also government taking some cuts as well.
It's true. I mean, George, if you look at, I think we have a 2 to 3% GDP reduction in expenditure, if you look at that. And then, as I mentioned, expenditures are going to be based on commitment basis. So don't go ahead of yourself and, you know, transact certain expenditures. That will not even get through the GHS system, because if your budget is not there, you can then post request for that. So that we've now been able to integrate the HRMIS of GHS, and that will help forestall ministers or officers, you know, giving contracts that really the budget can support, so that we get into these arrears and liabilities. And that's important, and we are going to insist on those things. So really, on our part, as as a ministry and the oversight that we are now putting in place, the type of letters that are already gone out, I think we're going to see a very, very different year for our management of fiscal rectitude.
I get the austerity that is being championed, but some will look at your budget deficits as well and ask that they don't get that sense of austerity in government, because if you're going to spend more, about 60 or 61 billion, I stand to be corrected, that sense of austerity is not being led by the government. Maybe the Ministry of Finance is doing it, but the government as an entity, the government as a company, I'm not feeling that.
I mean, if you look at all of the MMDAs and the programs that we need to support, they're real livelihoods at the end of the day. This whole outcry that we hear from bondholders, it's because it's partly the issue of whether people are getting appropriate, decent wages and salaries for what they do. And even though I would admit it's not decent, the quantum in the end ends up being quite significant for a percentage of revenue that we have. And that becomes an issue. So how much more can you cut? I mean, if you were to talk to any ministry, I mean, they will tell you that they are bored at the goods and services that we have allocated to them this year as opposed to the previous year. And all of those things, you know, have seen quite a bit of cut. I'm expecting that with the exchange program, we'll hopefully then be able to reduce the expenditures in our interest charges, and that would really bring our deficit to controllable limits, because we need to still move towards the under 5% in the FRA.
Can we cut more?
Can we cut more? We will certainly look during the year to be able to adjust, you know, as we get the benefits of the debt program and see. But you can have government coming to a halt, okay? That's important. Work must go on. And you can't do an austerity program and not be conscious of social protection that we have to do, but that has to be done efficiently. But certainly we have a team that is going to continue to be vigilant about what MMDA spend.
Is there an alternative to this debt exchange program?
What do we have? Essentially, if we look at, you know, globally, you can't have a situation where you are paying 20-25% interest on government issuance and believe that you can, you know, make progress with your macros. So we have to do something with the debt program. First, we have our fiscal adjustments, macro plans, structural changes. You then need a debt program to really get you off this 102% or 5% down to 55 over this landing zone of 2028. We have to get there to reduce that debt.
I felt very bad, and I said, we are dead, because an individual, someone who has some money and also cater for people who are disabled. I have 3 disabled people with their mother who is also a disabled, that I'm taking care of them at Bujumbura. Their father died, and we have to acquire we have to sell a property. And quickly, when we sold this property, I think that the best place that I can put it is in savings or a government bond, so that anytime they are looking for it, I can take the interest and then give it to them. Some one of them, a disabled person, is going to school at Legon. I send him her there. Another person is also trying to do DJ, and I also take care of him, plus their mother, who also cannot work. So these monies are supposed to be used in taking care of them, including my own money for my children who are also in their universities. So I didn't know how come we individual bondholders has to be included. Because if we are included, it means that our livelihood is cut off completely. Apparently, this bond is supposed to mature this very month, this very year.
Okay.
To be able...
The bond that you bought?
Yes, to be mature this very year. To enable me use the proceeds to do all this, to help them continue their living. And here comes the government telling us that it's not going to give it to us in 2, 3 years, 5 years, 15 years. It means that they will have to just die. They have to die because they would not survive.
Wow. How much did you invest?
I have 50,000. They also have, I have 500,000. They also have 500,000.
Wow.
Making,
so 1 million cedis locked up in the bond.
Yes. Yeah, so Mr. President Anado, please consider individuals, because individuals are, God's creation. And that is the reason why you are even doing this, what do we call them? The church.
National Cathedral.
The National Cathedral, where if you build cathedral to look after human being and make sure that human beings are well survived and serve God, and you have that spirit, then you don't have to let any human body suffer or perish. Don't let to have any individual.
Right, you're welcome back. This is Newsfile, and if we tell you the stories of the individuals, human faces that speak to us about their circumstances because of what is coming at them, you will be shocked. And you will look at some of our leaders and ask if they really appreciate what is going on, in this country, and the manner in which some of them are talking around town. Atiapa says, my EDC principle has been affected. Let no one lie to you. When I enrolled on EDC, I didn't sign up for what I see now. My Providence Fund is equally affected. Well, Senyo and his team will be explaining, and they have been explaining what it means that somewhere, somehow, everybody else is affected somehow. Peter Doe says, we know we are in a very serious economic crisis as a country, but what most Ghanaians didn't know now is that our financial sector situation is very slippery and a looming disaster. All deposits, people's investments, including individual bondholders, and the finance minister tells us that if we don't cooperate in this process, the country is heading into jeopardy. These are his own words in his exclusive interview with George Wiafe. K. Amofa says, the more I understand Ghana's domestic debt exchange, the more I think we need to have a new manager at the Ministry of Finance, Ghana. Manfrey says, my wife has been looking for a job since 2016 without success. She goes to Data Bank to withdraw her investment and is told all the interest is gone and her principal has also been reduced. This domestic bond exchange is wicked. Vel Cannon says, commending Ghana's finance minister is like praising a bus driver for telling you to get out and push the bus out of a gutter that he rode into whilst he remains in the driver's seat with the air conditioner still running. That's for you, Senyo Hosi. Aaron Coban, he didn't finish what he was saying, so let's hear him in full before we can criticize him that he's unduly and unnecessarily praising the finance minister. Aaron Coban says, we have a leadership crisis. If the people don't call for stringent laws to protect our purse, we will have some people lead us into an abyss. Sayyid Muhammad says, my fear is that people will start to withdraw their monies. That's if you get it. And I'm part of them because I don't trust the financial sector. Suta Davis says, which expenditure cut was the finance minister talking about? Has government reduced the number of ministers, number of CEOs, the useless staffers wasting our money in Jubilee House? This man is just as wicked as the word. It's difficult when people get into politics and they face certain difficulties. My encounter with Ken Ofori-Atta in a different situation. He's not the devil that many see him to be today, you know, but what can you do? If you have him making promises that he's reneging on, he's breaking them left, right, center, how can you fault people when they say that? So now let's get back to, I've got a few more messages, but I'll share them shortly. When I go to Prof, I'll be asking about alternative, because the finance minister suggests that there's no alternative. This is the way to go. But my question to you was that you were saying that the individual bondholders, you don't need their money to prop up the economy.
It's not that we don't need their money to prop up the economy. Individual bondholders, and let me define our constituency well. We're looking at people who have holdings directly on the CSD, and also those who have invested.
That's CSD.
The Central Securities Depository. So when you buy a treasury bill yourself, you have a CSD. If you buy a bond yourself through your bank, you have one. So the account doesn't sit with the bank, it sits with the Central Securities Depository. And that's run by the Bank of Ghana. It's a subsidiary sort of it. Then you have collective investment schemes. So you have individuals who invest in collective investment schemes that also uninvest on our bond market. So you go to a fund manager like Tessa Capital, the Triple T is supposed to be a risk-free fund, for example. Then you have the fixed income from Stanlib, you have EDC, Data Bank, M Fund, EPAC. All those are collective investment schemes. But you have individuals who invest in it. Then these fund managers take it and invest on the bond market. But the money doesn't belong to the fund managers. So if you negotiate with them and something happens, they don't lose. The only person really losing are the individuals who put their money there. So these are the people we talk about when we talk about individuals. Samson, this is not that we don't want to give. Who is paying the taxes? Are they not the same individuals? With increased taxes, we are paying for it. We have not refused to. We are providing loanable funds to the economy so that the economy's wheels can run. Are they not the individuals? The treasury bills that is giving government lifeline today, same individuals. So
but of course, the minister said treasury bills will, his words, never be touched.
I'm referring to your submission, right? Saying that to prop up the economy. I'm trying to say that we are already doing everything we can to prop up the economy. We haven't gone on any aluta against an increment of our PAYE, against the addition of taxes on VAT. We are cooperating. We need to have individuals have confidence and sustain that confidence, because look, that is where the real risk is. That's where we'll quickly transition from a fiscal crisis to an absolute economic crisis. And for me, it's my biggest fear. In addition, of course, is the direct impact that you have. This is the group of people who only trusted their government. And for them, their impact, there's no cushioning as compared to all the other structures. And when you touch this one, you will destroy your economy. That one I can assure you. It's not rocket science. You just need basic economics to realize it. But on the spreadsheets, you realize that, oh yes, when I add them, maybe this will balance. Now, they don't need them. That's the question. The finance minister said, and I wish your team will put up the slides. If I think I shared some slides with you the last time. The question as to are IBs required? If you can share it with viewers, that would be great. You are asking for 80% participation. This group of people combined are just about 10%. 11% we say, but now they've even reduced it a bit for us. So you let's say still 11%. So it's just 11%. So all those who are watching on the screen, that is the red pie. Government needs the green part of the pie. So when you take out that red, you still have everything else to deal with. So why disrupt the entire economy? Disrupt the sanctity of it. Disrupt 6.5 million lives unsustainably and possibly plunge us into an economic crisis. It's not a necessary feature. But you definitely need the broader economy to support government's activity. Maybe not this kind of DDE. We may have to negotiate it. There's a need for a reset in our entire paradigm, how we do things. Our tax compliance must go up. We must all start filing our taxes. We must all be willing to pay, because we can't just claim it is an NPP government today. The Ghana is one. Whether it's NDC or NPP, nobody wants to be hungry. So we have to fix it, because whatever it is, whoever caused it, we are where we are now, so we have a crisis. Government that leads must show the way. You don't show the way by increasing your expenditure by 40%. That's why I was saying I commend the finance minister for opening up for us to really have a conversation, for us to honestly look at how we fix the problem. Because from where we sit, what government was doing was trying to take the easy way out, because it didn't want to take the hard decisions for itself. It rather wanted us to take the painful pill. And that painful pill can be counterproductive and very disruptive of the economy. You take your capital expenditure. I think that will be the next slide. You take your capital expenditure. You've increased capital expenditure to 27 billion from 15.7 billion the previous year. I mean, that'll be the previous slide. You see it's another pie chart with a piece of, or the next slide. You've moved it by that. If you actually take out, look at this is what you have on the screen right now, is the budget increment, the total increment in the budget right now, which is about 54 billion. That 54 billion, if you reduce your expenditure by 6.6 billion, you still have an expansionary budget, but still you wouldn't have touched individuals. Even this 54 billion, I don't think you should be doing it. Because in the first place, when you owe and you can't sustain your payments, what you do is that you don't add more debt. What we have done is that we are running a budget deficit of 61 billion, meaning our debt profile, what you have there, is going to go up by 61 billion. So for starters, let me put it this way, when you enter a bathroom and the bathtub is running, the place is flooding, you don't first take a pill to start taking the water out. You go and close the tap. So you know that this is the quantum of problem I have, and I have to drain the water out of the room. That's what you have to do. What we are doing right now is we are running and opening new taps by adding more debt. So that's the first step. Stop the debt. 2, and if you want to stop the debt, just say that, look, I'm going to live life just like 2022. If you live life like just like 2022, you will be cutting out 54 billion cedis in your budget. But that will mean that people's lifestyle in government will change. But all of us sitting here, when we are cash strapped, when we don't have resources and we are broke, don't we adjust our lifestyle? When you are broke, is that the time to move from beer to champagne? You don't do that. From that time, you become a vegetarian. You reduce your, forgive me, my wife is a vegetarian, so you decide to change your lifestyle. You reduce the quantum of meat. This is basic economics management. Our mothers could do it. I don't see why we can't do it. All right, and some of us didn't have mothers who were economists. They were just caterers. All right, and they could do it and manage homes. And this is a broader sphere of it. We should go to manage, but it needs government to make hard decisions. You look at the state-owned. The
minister says they are reviewing all flagship programs. You know, they are all under review. He's
all of them,
except that he doesn't. He avoids the word review. You know, they don't like it. So he says they are being evaluated.
That is a review. Evaluation is a review. So I mean, just semantics here, which is very necessary.
We're talking about SOEs.
SOEs are the problem. Government's debt, central government's debt itself, is 80% of GDP. 79%. If you look at the MPC report of 2020 for November 2022, so let's round it up at 80. Now there are 10 years old. We have gone past 100, and that's where the danger is. Who brought the 100? The 100 is actually coming from the SOEs and some of government areas. Yes, and now people now get confused. Why was government saying 70 and now government is saying 100? Let's get this understanding. There's a central government public debt, and then there's the general government public debt. The central government public debt are the loans that central government itself, through the Ministry of Finance, is signing, or through them is signing with any counterparty or any lender. It doesn't even include the debt it owes, say, contractors. Those ones, we call them arrears, or any vendor. Then there's the general government debt. Now, the general government debt has to do with all debts, which includes the arrears, and any state-owned enterprise debt that government has contingent liability for. And that's where the cocoa bill problem will come. That's where the bust debt will come. The ECG debt will come. The Get Fund debts will come. Now, when you put a lot of these state-owned enterprises, they are not self-sustaining. So when it's not self-sustaining, that's when you add it to the general government debt, and that's why we have gone up here. So if we are looking at fixing the problem, you don't look at only government, central government cutting its expenditure. Let's go and look at what is happening at the state-owned enterprises. Every one of them is bloated. Every politician wants to dump somebody there. When MPP goes, NDC comes, they want to put somebody there. We've increased our institutions from 86 to 177. Why?
You won't believe that when one of their own, Dr. Stephen Amwa, was on this show once and said that they needed to do what he called delayer the institutions, because there are some of them, there are 3 deputies unnecessary.
Absolutely.
You know, this government started with its historical bolo, over 100 and over a dozen ministers, and were justifying it. My friends at City decided to just look at the communications outfit of the Jubilee House alone, and 22 individuals doing communication work. Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa has, from the start of this government, been talking about that place and the numbers of people that they put there, the hangers on, some of whom they don't have any work, just have to come and sit there.
The culture of politicians is that Ghana is a cake. Everybody's coming for a share and go. That thing must stop. Ghana is not a cake. It is a group of lives that you come, you administer, and you leave. So how you manage it, you always leave legacy that's sustainable for our own well-being. When Ghana is good, it's good for all of us. Nobody wants Ghana to go down. But when people start talking, then everything becomes politics. This country is sick. Even common sense is even now become a matter of whether it is green or it is blue. My brother, what you have in government, the size of government today doesn't make sense. Central government itself has moved what? 300,000 people in addition since 2017. What for? You have an economy which had a public sector that has been very inefficient. So if you've been inefficient, you've come, and Baumia has been touting technology. When you bring in technology, do you increase labor? When technology is added to the space, it means you optimize the productivity of labor, meaning you actually need less labor. But we have done the reverse. We'll spend the money on the technology and we'll still now bloat the place. Now we have to deal with a compensation increment of about 10 billion, of about 6.5 billion. Now you've done this one that you have done right now. In addition, you've come to add 30%. It's important we start looking into all these 30%. If we listen to the arguments of labor, they talk about the incentives that have now been given to institutions like the Council of State, and they think that they also deserve some. Government has to cut its coat according to the size of its cloth. If you cut and match your expenditure for last year alone, you have saved 54 billion. If you're able to sustain our revenue increment over the next 3 years, it means that over the next 3 years, without government really touching even the DDE people, government has the capacity to pay off our old debt.
Okay.
It has that. But it means that it has to go through pain. You have to let go your party, your full soldiers that you have put there doing nothing. You have to sack them. You have to cut down on some of your projects. You have to revise things like the free SHS. The free SHS, for instance, is a great project because any economy growing needs to add the skills to its labor for it to be more productive. So once you have labor and capital and savings, also a feature of your growth model, your labor can be optimized by adding technology or skills to it. So that's what free SHS wants to do. It's just not being structured. Do we really need people to leave Accra for well-to-do homes to go to Ugehe in Cape Coast and have this budget pay for it? No. Why don't we just say the day schools is free? Maybe you get just a meal. If you want to go to boarding house, you actually have to pay for it. Unless, of course, you don't have access to a day school close by and government funds it. We easily could actually save $1 billion.
You know, the finance minister himself had a similar view at the beginning, and it does appear, you know, he couldn't, carry the day in cabinet. So now he too, his view appears to have changed.
There are some SOEs you should look at.
And the wholesale matter.
But
let me bring on.
I highlight one. You have close $1 billion that's going to MIF. Why are we doing MIF? They are my neighbors, very good people in there. What is it that's happening at MIF right now? Unless, of course, it was only set up to be able to facilitate a JAPA. But if not, what is it at MIF that can be done at the Minerals Commission and the Ministry of Finance at the same time? Look at it. You are putting $1 billion in there, meaning this could actually sit down and help reduce our deficit directly.